this episode, I'm going to talk about my '06 Jeep Wrangler LJ. I get quite a few people asking me about how I build it, what I've done to it, and why I have built it a certain way. So in this episode, we're going to get into just the axles part of it, because I just had some new additions put on, some upgrades to it, and I've had some questions about that, so I'm going to answer them now. So the first part I'm going to talk about is that you can see it is 5 on 5.5 bolt pattern, so it still looks a Jeep bolt pattern, but you'll see it does have manual locking hubs. So it's definitely not a factory Rubicon front axle, and I've upgraded for a reason. And that is because I kept wearing out the front axle. So I was going through unit bearings, ball joints, tie rods. I was wearing them out all the time. I was literally doing 3 unit bearings per side per year because of how much off-roading I do with my business. So I was constantly wearing them out. Then I went to the manual locking hubs on that with the reed knuckle conversion. Then I was constantly repacking the bearings, retightening the bearings, and they got to be a pain. So I had EMS Off-Road help me come up with the best front axle for me. And that's what is in this now, and I'm going to talk about that as we look around to the front. Now, I did not go 1 ton on mine, and there's a bunch of reasons. I prefer running 35s. Why? Because I can still do all the trails that I want to do. I can do green, blue, black, reds with this. I can still drive it down the road nicely. So I wanted to be able to do 35s or run 35s, so I didn't want to have a big differential hanging down the front. So to get strength without the ground clearance compromise, what I built and had built was a 79 Ford high pinion front 44 with the extra thick tubes. Then I had the ends cut off and basically Dana 60 outers put on. So those are all essentially Super Duty inner C's, knuckles, stub shafts, U-joints. So everything from the inner C out is basically F250, F350 Super Duty. So all that is Dana 60 strength out that way. For front brake upgrades, we went with Super Duty calipers. So they're the dual piston large calipers. And then the rotors are actually a heavy duty Dodge 1500 rotor on there to match the 5 on 5.5 bolt pattern. All the shafts are chromoly. The inner ones are basically a Dana 50 because it has a Dana 60 outer, but the splines are down to the Dana 44 splines, so it's a Dana 50 shaft as both inners. So it's high pinion, it has 513 gears in it, Yukon zip locker. Everything is beefed up, but it gives me plenty of ground clearance to run the 35-inch tires, but the strength, so I'm not wearing out the unit bearings, the ball joints, the tie rods. This axle was built 5 years ago. I put this in this Jeep 5 years ago, and I've had to replace all the ball joints once and the unit bearings once in 5 years. So it's a win by doing this upgrade. I wasn't breaking things, I was wearing things out because I'm in water, driving over rocks 5 to 7 days a week. So this Jeep gets a lot of abuse, so it has to be able to withstand all of that abuse. So I had to beef everything up to hold it. It is trussed. It has the standard 4-link in the front, solid tie rod, solid drag link. What was done with the rear, first to add a bigger rear axle, we had to move the tank back. Now the nice part about having an LJ, it's factory mounted in the front cross member, which is 6 inches forward, or 4 inches forward, whatever it ends up being, than the rear cross member, like a TJ would have. So I had EMS move the tank back for clearance and put it basically on the TJ cross member. So that was moved back 4 to 6 inches. And I had them put and custom build me a Dana 60 for the rear. Still has a Yukon zip locker in it and has 513 gears, chromoly shafts, whole 9 yards. And the reason why I built a Dana 60, I wasn't breaking the 44, I was wearing out the bearings every couple years and constantly replacing the pinion bearings and the carrier bearings. It takes its toll over time. So I wanted to build something that had bigger bearings that I didn't have to worry about it. So this is a E350 van rear Dana 60. So it's nice and smooth on the bottom, no ribs. I didn't have to shave it. And I lost about 3/4 of an inch of ground clearance. That was it. So it's a beefier unit. I don't have to worry about it wearing out or anything. And it'll hold up to what I'm doing with this vehicle. Now in the back, again, Dodge 1500 front rotors in the rear and Chevy 3/4 ton pickup front calipers in the rear for that extra stopping power.